that even she had heard of. However, a Lance had not been mentioned on the website. He must be a new addition, and he must be damned good if they allowed him to come and go as he pleased. Either way, she'd give the guy one chance. If he turned out to be a waste of her time, she'd figure something else out. She glanced around. She really hoped it worked out, though. This place had everything, including a ring. She needed to focus the most on sparring. She opened the glass front door and stepped out into the cool October air. As she made her way down the sidewalk to her car, a pained grunt came from her left. She froze, listening intently for the sound to repeat. Not a second later, another grunt sounded. She glanced toward the edge of the building, then inched toward the alley. As she reached the corner, she poked her head around and her stomach twisted hard. About 15 feet away, 3 average-built guys surrounded a beefy blonde man. One of the guys lunged at him, but the blonde weaved out of the way, only to have another guy wrap his arms around the blonde's torso so his arms were pinned to his sides. The smaller man was no match for the blonde. He easily broke out of the hold, then spun around and punched the guy. He doubled over, holding his face. "Fuck, I think he broke my nose." One of the others took advantage of the blonde man's distraction and landed a right jab on his chin. His hand whipped to the side and he stumbled backward into a dumpster. With him in a weak position, both men attacked and sent fists into his gut, side and head. Pained groans filled the air as he sank to his knees on the asphalt. Jesus, they were going to kill him. She slipped her cell from her pocket and dialed 911 with shaky fingers. 911, what's your emergency? There are 3 guys jumping another guy in the alley behind Handover and McDowell, she whispered. Get here fast, please. She ended the call. Panicked, she studied her surroundings. She couldn't just stand here and let those 3 thugs continue to beat up on that man until the cops arrived. They might kill him. She'd never be able to forgive herself if that were to happen. But she wasn't stupid either. There were 3 of them. One of her. She had to think of her own safety too. Surprising them would be her best plan of action. Her car was parked about 5 feet away. The men were all standing near the front end of the car. She assessed each man's position. One stepped back, breathing heavily, and wiped his arm across his forehead. The other was still occupied with the blonde and was taking extreme pleasure in kicking him in the stomach. The guy with the broken nose was on his feet, but still preoccupied trying to stop the blood flow. She focused on the one who was panting. Swallowing back her fear, she crouch ran to the bumper of the parked car, then crept between the vehicle and the wall of the building until she reached the front. Keeping low, she waited for the breathless man to step closer. The moment he did, she sprang onto his back and slid her arm underneath his chin, then locked the submission hold into place with her other arm. The man froze and then started spinning around, trying to dislodge her from his back. Prepared for the reaction, she wrapped her legs around his waist and brought the chokehold in tighter. The man collapsed to his knees. She glared at the guy who'd frozen mid-punch to stare at her with stunned eyes. Back off, she said with a deadly calm that surprised even her. She wasn't sure if it was shock at someone interfering or the fact that it was a woman who'd brought down their friend. But one guy stepped back from the blonde, while the other with the bloodied nose lowered his hand from his face. Get the hell out of here. Perhaps telling them to leave wasn't the best idea, but she didn't like the odds. She needed to keep the upper hand before the shock wore off. The 2 men hesitated, so she tightened her grip on their buddy's throat. A strangling gargle wheezed out. He slapped her forearm. Tell them to leave, she ordered. Purple-faced, the guy squeaked out a, "Go!" and his cronies followed his order. As soon as they ran off, she pressed her lips to the man's ear. That wasn't a fair fight, was it? People like you make me sick. She lowered her feet to the ground and squeezed hard once more before releasing the man with a shove to the ground. His palm slapped the asphalt. He lifted his head and glared at her. Straightening to her whole 5'4", she glared back, wishing more than anything this had been the way that night had ended so long ago, with her towering over him, daring him, with just an intense look to make another move. The man pushed up, muttering, "Fucking bitch." Meh, she'd been called worse. Go join your friends. As he straightened, his tall frame overwhelmed her small one, towered over her. Fear